Good morning to you all, and welcome to the First Unitarian Church of Alton. Greetings as well to those watching this service remotely. My name is John Herndon. My pronouns are he, him. The First Unitarian Church of Alton is a small congregation in Alton, Illinois, spiritually led by the Reverend Krista Taves. We remember those who come before us. Our ancestors are many, and their collective memories guide and direct us through all of our days. We are conscious of the land that we occupy is shared. The universe has granted us a perfect place to grow our food, give us shelter, and to give us space for spiritual practice. To that end, we are also conscious that we must protect the land that we borrow so that the generations to come can grow and thrive in harmony and love with the universe that is. We also recognize that the land is stolen and occupied from the first people the Europeans called Elinawik, but who themselves called each other Inoka. Others have come to invade and seize, while others to live in harmony and share. Our land is baptized in the blood, the sweat, and the river of tears from enslaved Africans who were forced from their home and the home of their ancestors to become chattel property here in this land. May our spiritual practice recognize all of these relationships as we strive to live in harmony with our past, our present, and be forever conscious of the future that we create. We are a spiritual people, a people of faith and love, and we are so glad you are here, whether in the sanctuary or online. And I welcome everyone to this home of comfort, spirit, justice, and hope. We are Unitarian Universalists. We open our service with a prelude this morning by our accompanist, Joy Held. Our chalice lighting this morning. An important ritual in the Unitarian Universalist faith is the lighting of our chalice. Unitarian Universalists have many different interpretations of the flaming chalice, including the light of reason, the warmth of community, and the flame of hope. Join me in celebrating all these reasons and more. If you are watching elsewhere and have a chalice or candle, please light it now as we say, all join in saying the unison words projected on the screen. We hallow this time together by kindling the lamp of our heritage. Our opening words this morning are a reading from Elizabeth Mount entitled The Right to Choose. To begin, to start, to create, to undertake, to grow, to promise, to increase, to generate. All these are our birthright. As we are created, so may we create. The ability and the choice to create is sacred. To withdraw that chance from any person without their permission would be a violent act, the cutting off of life itself. And yet, as precious is the right to simply not, to end, to terminate, to stop, to discontinue, to rest, to hibernate, to impede, to prevent. These too are our birthright. For without consent, our ability to create becomes not a blessing, but a burden and an imposition. Without space for a no, there can be no trustworthy yes. Today we come to this holy place and time, ready to invoke the divine, to make space for the sacred, to co-create community once again. This too is a choice. You cannot, you may not be coerced into relationship with the holy or with one another. I invite you, I ask you to join us. I respect it if you will not today or if ever. More sacred than any other individual need is choice. The right to know oneself, the right to know what you are ready for, what you need, to stretch when you can, to pause when you will, to know your body, your mind, your spirit better than anyone else, and ultimately to be trusted with the responsibility of your own living. So it may be. Our hymn this morning is number 347, our first hymn, number 347 in the gray hymnal. Gather the Spirit, number 347. Please rise as you may. Please be seated. Today's message resonates with most of our UU principles, but especially three of our UU principles. Number one, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Number two, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. And number five, the right of conscience and the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. Our story for all ages today is actually a YouTube video that's available on the UUA website. As we journey through January and February, we are reminded of great figures in African American history, and today we're going to hear a story about former Representative John L. Lewis, who unfortunately passed away about a year ago. In the video, the author talks about him passing away just briefly, just prior to the video or to the recording. So let's take a look at this.
This true story comes to us from John Lewis, a great leader in this nation who died just last month. Many people were sad to lose him and thankful for all the things that he had done to bring about justice and fairness in our nation. He had lived a long and full life asking of himself and asking of all of us to show up for justice, to do what we can and just a little bit more to make sure that there is more fairness in our country. When he was 23 years old, he spoke at the March on Washington with Dr. King.
We are tired. We are tired of being beaten by policemen. We're tired of seeing our people locked up in jail over and over again. And then you holler, be patient. How long can we be patient? We want our freedom and we want it now.
John Lewis grew up in a large family, and he would spend time with his aunts and uncles, with his siblings and cousins. There were many children who lived in the neighborhood, and they would play together. This was long before there was a pandemic, and so people could play together and hang out together in person. Mr. Lewis tells us about a time when he was playing outside his Aunt Zenevia's house with about 14 other children when a big storm, arrived. A kind of storm that made him and everyone else afraid. I'm going to tell a story from his perspective, so it's like him talking. So when I say I, it really means John. Aunt Zenevia was the only adult around, and as the sky blackened and the wind grew stronger, she herded us all inside. Her house was not the biggest place around, and it seemed even smaller with so many children squeezed inside. Small and surprisingly quiet. All of the shouting and laughter that had been going on earlier outside had stopped. The wind was howling now, and the house was starting to shake, and we were scared. Even Aunt Zenevia was scared. And then it got worse. Now the house was beginning to sway, and the wood plank flooring beneath us began to bend, and then a corner of the house began lifting up. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. None of us could. This storm was actually pulling the house towards the sky with us in it. That was when Aunt Zenevia told us to clasp hands. Line up and hold hands, she said, and we did as we were told. And then she had us walk as a group towards the corner of the room that was rising. From the kitchen to the front of the house we walked, and the wind was screaming outside, and sheets of rain were beating on the tin roof. And we walked back in the other direction as another end of the house began to lift. And so it went back and forth, 15 children walking with the wind, holding that trembling house down with the weight of our small bodies. Can you imagine what it was like to have been inside that house? Afraid that it might fall apart from the destructive force of the wind and the rain from the whole storm? I'm so glad that John Lewis wasn't alone, that no one there was alone, that he was with his friends and family. I'm so glad that together they figured out a way to save the house, to save their home. When John Lewis was much older, just not that long before he died, he was writing down the story of his whole astounding life, and he wrote these words. More than half a century has passed since that day, and it has struck me more than once over the many years that our society is not unlike the children in that house, rocked again and again, the winds of one storm or another, the walls around us seemingly like they're going to fly apart. It seemed that way in the 1960s at the height of the civil rights movement, when America itself felt as if it might burst at the seams, so much tension, so many storms. But the people of conscience never left the house. They never ran away. They stayed, they came together, and they did the best they could, clasping hands and moving towards the corner of the house that was the weakest. And then another corner would lift, and we would go there. And eventually, inevitably, the storm would subside and the house would stand. But we knew another storm would come, and we would have to do it all over again. And we did. And we still do, all of us, you and I. Children holding hands, walking with the wind. Thank you for listening, not really to my story, but to Mr. John Lewis's story.
The storms keep coming, never subsiding, always stronger. Now as we sing our children out to the RE today. As you journey, may you know, love and will go with you, love and will go with you. Learn and grow, learn and grow. As part of our weekly worship service, we take time for the expression of joys, concerns, or sorrows. In front of us is a bowl filled with water and stones available to place in the bowl representing your joys and concerns. Please start on my right and proceed to the left. Take a moment to stop and reflect. Send your energy to the universe and place your stone or stones in the water. we had a stone for all the people who were killed by senseless violence in our country and our world. We didn't have room to fit it in the stone. Stones would overflow into the street and into the community. We mourn today the senseless death of Tyree Nichols, yet another young man who was murdered by those who are set to protect us, to serve. Our meditation hymn this morning is a song by Holly Near. It's called I Am Willing. I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. There is hurting in my family, and there is sorrow in my town. There is panic all across the nation, and there is wailing the whole world round. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. May the children see more clearly, and may the elders be more wise. May the winds of change caress us, even though they burn our eyes. But I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift me up to the light of change. Give me a mighty oak to hold my confusion. Give me a desert to hold my fears. Give me a sunset to hold my wonder. Give me an ocean to hold my tears. For I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would seem so strange. It dishonors those who go before us. So lift us up to the light of change. I really need to play that more. My fingers are killing me right now. Sorry. Our reading this morning is from the Reverend Dr. Deborah Hafner, and it's entitled, I Can't Believe I'm Still Protesting This stuff that she puts in here. So I had vivid memories of January 22nd, 1973, the day the Supreme Court overturned the ban on abortion in the U.S. I was a student and at the Student Center when I heard. A cheer went up when it was announced. The days of having to arrange rides for women to New York City for abortions were about to be over. The days of women dropping out of high school and college to have babies they were ill-equipped to raise were over. We thought this right was secured forever. The first time I marched for women's rights was in 1976. I wore a long white dress with a purple and yellow sash modeled after the suffragettes. I was 22. I've lost track of the number of other times I've marched or spoken at rallies in D.C., 28 times since January 2016. My family, including our 4-year-old daughter, marched for access to abortion in 1989. I was 35. We marched again in 2003, and I was the speaker at a worship service on the back steps of the Capitol. I was 49 in 2016. I spoke at a rally at the Supreme Court as it heard a case about abortion clinics. I'll be marching again this week, and I can't help but think of this sign that I saw at the Women's March in 2020. I can't believe I'm still protesting this stuff. I was 19 when Roe was decided, and 62 when marriage equality became the law of the land. I thought we were done securing sexual rights. We aren't done. The last administration worked mightily to roll back sexual rights, even as the president boasted on national TV about his sexual conquests. Last year, 8 states enacted bills against transgender people, limiting their rights to sports, bathrooms, and even medical care, and more are under consideration. Texas enacted a law banning all abortions at 6 weeks, and in June 2022, the Supreme Court overturned the 50-year Roe decision. Abortion became illegal in at least 14 states within 2 weeks of that decision. Abortion and LGBTQ plus rights are intertwined. The Supreme Court case that gave gay people the right to have sex, yes, that was decided in 2003, and the right to marry are based on Roe's affirmation of a constitutional right to privacy. It's more than just legal. Both are fundamentally about the right to be able to live an adult sexual intimate life without governmental interference. Every adult's sexual rights, the right to marry who we choose, the right to pleasure, the right to bodily autonomy are endangered if anyone's rights to a consensual adult relationship are imperiled. For more than 5 decades, people from every religion have supported the right of individuals to make their own moral decisions. More than a dozen major religious denominations passed policies, some as many as 50 years ago, supporting access to legal abortion. In the 1960s, clergy opened one of the first abortion clinics in the U.S. and fought for the repeal of abortion laws. As you know, UUs were in the vanguard of promoting women's and LGBTQ plus rights. We will be again. We must help people understand that the sin is never sex and sexuality. The sin is sexual violence, harassment, abuse, and misconduct. The sin is not homosexuality, but heterosexism. Not transgender people, but transphobia. The sin is forcing a pregnant person to carry a pregnancy and give birth against their will. The sin is to deny anyone the gift of their sexual and gender identity or the information, services, and rights they need to make responsible decisions. Sexuality in all its stunning diversity is part of our birthright. The Talmud says, "In the world to come, we will be held accountable for all the good things we refuse to enjoy." That includes sexuality. May each of us and our children and our grandchildren and theirs celebrate our sexuality with holiness and integrity. The message this morning that I came up with is entitled "The Tyranny and Misogyny of Natural Law, a Restorative Theological Reflection." Natural law, as defined by the religious right, and specifically as defined by the 6 majority justices on the Supreme Court, is rested in the thought of Thomas Aquinas. He understands natural law as the participation of the rational creature in the eternal law. Citing Psalm 4, Aquinas refers to the natural reason as a light reflected upon us from the face of God. The Supreme Court authors in Dobbs v. Jackson, overturning Roe v. Wade, have carefully removed any references to divine or eternal law, unlike some state legislators who, in crafting their laws banning abortion, have cited specific language that makes no allusion as to their religious viewpoint. And as we have seen in the state of Missouri, they seek to establish a particular religious view as state law. This is the tyranny of natural law, an unequivocal imposition of a strict religious establishment tradition upon all citizens. The misogyny of natural law, because it specifically singles out women as the target and seeks to codify women's autonomy. Where are the laws that define the sexual limits of men? Natural law, in the narrow view of the religious right, seeks to reestablish a view of a woman's role in society as subservient to male dominance, though it is always shrouded in seemingly plain language, phrases like family values, traditional family structures, or simply traditional families. This is the misogyny of natural law. The 6 majority justices of the Supreme Court were all handpicked by the Federalist Society. Some may know what the Federalist Society is, some may not, but it is a legal conservative think tank which never participates in any cases, submits no briefs or friend of the court briefs to the Supreme Court or in any cases at all, takes no difficult positions, takes no distinct positions on any laws in the country, yet they hold enormous influence over the federal judiciary, and as seen in our American society as a whole. The philosophy of the Federalist Society has always been stated as originalism or textualism, which is shown to be interpret the laws on a strict view of the original writing, and to examine the viewpoint of the original authors of the Constitution. Certainly a fundamentalist view of law that, if applied strictly, would certainly eliminate many of the basic rights that we as American citizens take for granted today. But upon closer examination, we can see that it is indeed a conservative viewpoint of natural law, and specifically Catholic natural law political theory, that is the key to understanding the Federalist Society and its members, specifically the majority 6 of the Supreme Court. As Peter Schwartz has written in Religion News Service, if the original meaning of the text of the Constitution frames and structures the law, the Federalist Society members, natural law is the pre-political moral order that lies beneath the floorboards. Schwartz also observes that with its moral anthropology of divinely ordered human nature and its commitment to morally distinctive notions of human dignity and human flourishing, Catholic natural law, an 800-year-old tradition dating back to Thomas Aquinas, is a lens that offers clarity to conservative Catholic jurists, activists, policymakers, and scholars as they observe, describe, and engage the world. The power and sharpness of this lens allows them to confidently snap every human moment, every human desire and motive, and act as it is humanly and divinely appointed and its proper place. The question of choice concerning control of pregnancy is a deeply personal decision that is rooted in a deep theological reality that Unitarian Universalists know very well. The inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregation and yet within our society as a whole. I would propose a restorative theology approach, not an allusion to certain Christian movements that wish to restore the world to a Christian fundamentalist view of dogma and morals, exactly what the 6 original textual natural law Supreme Court justices are leading their own religious overt revolution. But a restorative theology that models after restorative justice systems, that seeks to heal the person and to restore all society to a moral reality that is basic to all religious understanding. A restorative theology that would restore the view of the dignity of the person and the right to choose how they bodily exist and the biological processes that govern their individual existence. A restorative theology that restores women to their natural existence and to that of a person who controls their own body, decides when and if she gives birth. A person who controls what kind of life she lives, and not because of ancient dogmas that are deemed specific roles for men and women. A restorative theology that recognizes that religious freedom does not seek to impose our values on a society at large, but must be free to choose. Indigenous peoples have utilized the knowledge of medicinal plants throughout every stage of reproductive health care. From the start of menstruation, contraception, abortion, pregnancy, and the birthing process, and after birth, breastfeeding, uterine health, and into menopause, indigenous plant knowledge is passed down from generation to generation and is learned after years of formal training and by practicing proper cultural protocols. Annie Mad Plume Wall is well known and well regarded as an indigenous healer among the Blackfeet Nation of Montana. She learned plant knowledge from her grandmothers, including knowledge about reproductive health. Our grandmother taught us that Blackfeet women used both medicinal plants and ritual practices for reproductive health. The Blackfeet used over a dozen plants to regulate menstruation, for abortion, for the birth process, and to address symptoms of menopause. They also held a religious ceremony during which a sanctified belt decorated with religious symbols was worn to regulate fertility and prevent pregnancy. Whether using medicinal plants or religious rituals, Blackfeet people viewed reproductive health and bodily autonomy as a part of our relationship with the sacred realm. While Christian conservatives viewed the recent decision as a spiritual victory, not all religions view abortion the same. A Jewish synagogue in southern Florida recently announced it was suing the state for violation of religious freedom after it passed a law restricting abortion. Islamic religious scholars assert that classic Islamic law sees legal personhood as beginning at birth. Even Christian perspectives on abortion and contraceptive care have fluctuated over time. Some religious studies scholars argue, in short, there is no single religious view of abortion. The overturning of Roe v. Wade is part of a long legacy of American Christian values being forced on indigenous communities. Indigenous peoples in the United States have only recently been able to assert their own religious ideas and practices. The American Indian Religious Freedom Act passed in 1979 after nearly 200 years of religious suppression by the United States government. This law guarantees that indigenous people have a right to access religious sites, possess sacred objects, and have full religious freedom to worship and practice in their ceremonies. This includes reproductive health ceremonies. Boarding schools run by Christian churches and the federal government also played a strong role in suppressing and criminalizing Native American cultures and religions. One impact that boarding schools had on indigenous children and the communities was the loss of intergenerational cultural knowledge. The U.S. government is just beginning to address part of this history as activists and members of Congress push for the passage of Truth and Healing Commission on Indian Boarding Schools Policies Act. Though indigenous communities deeply suffered from the intentional destruction of their culture and religions, there has been a vibrant resurgence in the traditional ecological knowledge in our communities, including reproductive health care practices. Reproductive health care is not just an item for Christian religions. We've seen indigenous peoples have a long history of religious uses for in reproductive health. As we seek to revitalize a restorative theology that restores the personhood of women, the personhood of bodily autonomy, we move forward from this point on, always activists, always striving to reach that restorative theology position. So may it be. Now I think it's time for the next hymn. Yes, so the next hymn, our last hymn actually, is number 1008 in the Teal hymnal. When Our Heart is in a Holy Place, it's number 1008. Please rise as you may. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom of us, every word we find, and we feel each other's love. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, tell our story deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's room. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our hearts goes within, and we feel the power of each other's faith. When our heart is in a we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place. Please be seated. Stewardship is both financial donations as well as volunteering your time, talent, and treasure. We continue to need support for worship, coffee hour, and ushering. If you can't write a check, please help our church survive and thrive by offering your time to help. Please give what you can because all of your gifts are needed for our church to prosper. You may mail your financial gift to the First Unitarian Church, Post Office Box 494, Alton, Illinois 62002. Or you can give electronically through the Give Liffey or PayPal links that are on the church webpage. If you are willing to donate your time and talent, please contact a board member and let us know what you would like to do and help. Give what you will and what you are able, for you are a generous people. Please join me in the offering prayer. May this offering equip us to inspire love and to seek justice. We have several announcements today. Announcement 1, due to the flood and the upcoming repairs, we have had to move everything out of the downstairs room in the RE wing. The items will either be discarded, moved, or moved to an off-site storage unit or moved upstairs. The catastrophe company will be doing the moving and taking the discarded items to the trash starting Monday, which I assume is tomorrow. A big thank you to the folks who worked on Friday evening and Saturday morning and afternoon on what initially looked like a never project. Earlier in the week, Carol McGrew sorted through all the RA materials downstairs. And Friday evening volunteers were Nancy Magnuson and Mark Antu, Suzanne and Alan Oberholzer, Robin Berkeley, Pat Moore, Nathan Brown, Michael Terabowski, Joy, Alex, and Ben Heft, and Mary and Jerry Johnson. On Saturday, volunteers were Mary Weber, Jen and Wayne Pollich, Peg Flack, Michael Terabowski, Robin Berkeley, and Mary and Jerry Johnson. And Dee Evans provided lunch for us all. Oh, yeah. A second announcement, we have made arrangements with Susie Delano from First Presbyterian down the street to take and distribute our regular personnel and household care products to the folks who come by weekly for lunch at the First Pres Church. We have a van and car full of boxes and crates and all these products, and we need 3 or 4 volunteers to help unload at the First Presbyterian Albee Street door starting at 11:15 this morning. It's only a block away at the corner of Albee and 4th. So you can easily walk, or there's parking lot across Albee Street from that particular church. This might cut into your enjoying our potluck lunch, so either eat quickly or ask a friend to save a plate of food for you. But please let Mary Johnson know if you can help this morning. So, right. And I think Robin has a couple announcements.
Couple things. Thank you, Mary, for the list of the thank yous and everything that was tops on my list here. So I want to also express my thank yous. I mean, it really did feel overwhelming when we walked in, and every time I walked into that office in that far corner, my heart would palpitate. But it got done. It really did, and I'm so grateful. And there are moments like that, when I worry, right? How are we going to be? Are we going to make it? Is this going to be okay? And this weekend reminded me, we're going to be okay. We're going to do this. I thank Peg. She and I worked on removing all the Christmas decorations, and she's made it we're going to call it the Tree of Life. And the Tree of Life is now decorated for Valentine's Day with all the red, and then we'll have green next for St. Patrick's Day, and then we'll get into spring and Pride and keep the cycle going for fun. A survey is going to go out depending on Mary's schedule, and I'm not putting any pressure on Mary, tonight or tomorrow. And I'll get that to you as well, I promise. But I need you to just send the email out. That's it. Just a link and a thank you. I'm sorry. Sorry, Mary. Okay. But we need to have the congregational survey answered before we go to our, yep, I will, I promise. It's been a busy week, as you know. We both have been very busy. Anyway, the survey is about sort of the new location and what our options are. And, the moving team has already gone to see a few sites. We've been talking a little bit about that. That's been some great options. We'll have more detail for you, but we do need to have that survey done, so that we can share to everybody kind of in aggregate what's going on and where people's reactions to what some of the options are. We have, speaking of which, the congregational meeting will be on the 12th, February 12th. And so come and prepared for that. For those of you virtually, of course, we will have a virtual option, but we want to make sure that we show up. There's lots of important things to be talking about. We will also have a talent night on the 24th. It's a Friday night. I know, and Mary and Jerry and I are going to perform for you. and we're not going to share what it is yet because it's epic. You know what it is, and it is epic. John says it's epic, and given that I really can't sing well, the fact that I'm willing to do this, you know this is going to be epic. So please come with a talent, whatever it is, to just come and have fun and enjoy, and we're going to have a great evening. And there's a sign-up sheet out there, so please, and even if you just want to read a poem, who cares? I mean, just look, whatever, just do something, because it's about fun and togetherness. Lastly, Nathan texted me this morning and he said he's sorry he couldn't be here, but his neighbor was burning leaves and his garage caught on fire. I know, right? So it's actually, there's no permanent damage other than, some siding melted and the downspout kind of fell off, whatever. So anyway, he just said, just let people know and, thoughts and prayers and all that kind of stuff for him. So that's about it for me.
Anybody else have any other announcements at all? If not, I will invite you to, looking for my, oh, here it is. Okay, never mind. I'll invite you to join me in the recite the prayer as we extinguish the chalice. The light of truth and meaning cannot be put out. We are keepers of this flame until we meet again. Our closing words today are entitled A Minister's Farewell, and it's by Caitlin Cotter Coilberg. Beloveds, may love guide you on your journey forward, joy meet you at every turn, and hope be your daily practice. May gratitude companion you, compassion embolden you, and open-hearted courage be your unending choice. May peace challenge you, dear ones, generosity empower you, and may you know in every day that you are enough just exactly as you are, and you are not alone. Blessed be, Ashe, and farewell. All right, time to enjoy the potluck.